What's up guys, before we get into this video, I just want to put a little disclaimer out there that this video is in no way, shape, or form trying to glorify any drug usage. I say it multiple times throughout the video. This is just my personal experiences with the drugs that I've done and how I feel about them. If anything that you guys take away from this video, I want you to understand that I have been through a lifetime of hell due to the choices that I've made as a kid and as a young adult, and I've came out of that, and you guys have seen that over the past 2 years on my YouTube channel. So please understand that if you're fighting drug addiction or know somebody that is, it is possible to overcome that addiction and live drug free. I am an example of that, and if anything, that's what I want you guys to take out of this. Please, this is not for glorification purposes, and if you guys are here to pass judgment, please don't even watch the video. This was very tough for me to put out. This video's been ready for 3 days. I'm hoping that this video will open up a door to lead down to some other videos that we can talk about, kind of going into my past, and hopefully be able to make some different videos coming out of this one. I hope you guys enjoy. Much love, and yeah, shout out to everybody that is tuning in. Enjoy. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here we are back at the park. Last time we were here, kind of had that little motivational video where I was like, yo, you guys can do whatever you want, and you know, I'm kind of tired of just talking about clothes and showing you guys what I purchased, and I kind of want to go down a different direction. So I guess this video goes line in line with that. I also put on my Instagram yesterday if you guys would want to see this video. I was inspired to do this video by Steve-O. Luckily, Steve-O had somebody filming him for the past 15-20 years of his life, so he had footage to back up every drug that he's done, and footage while he was on those drugs. I wish I had that. That would have been crazy, but that's who I was inspired to do this video by. A lot of you guys said you wanted to see it, so this is it. I'm gonna just explain every drug that I've ever done and my experience with that drug. Yeah, please do not mistake this video for glorification. I have not used drugs since February 8th, 2015. That means I'm coming up on 5 years drug free. Now, drugs can be under many different categories. Some people say nicotine's a drug, some people say marijuana's a drug, so on and so forth. But I haven't used drugs, the drugs that I consider drugs, for almost 5 years. So please don't mistake this as glorification. In my personal experience, using drugs and alcohol, you know, to abusive extent can only lead to harmful things. They will only lead to jails, institutions, and death. Some people can use drugs and alcohol normally and they can use them responsibly, and some people can't. So you have to know which side of the line you're on and go from there. So please don't mistake this as glorification. This is just me talking from personal experience, and let's get into it. So the first drug I want to talk about is alcohol. Now, I don't know if I really consider alcohol a drug. Again, it really just depends what side of the line that you're on, but I did have a relationship with alcohol at some point in my life, so we're gonna go over it. Honestly, alcohol for me is a 0 out of 10. Still to this day, I don't really enjoy drinking alcohol. I don't drink alcohol that much. I have cracked a brewski with the homies. Once in a while, I'll throw back a beer, but as far as like drinking, I have never been a fan of it. Most of my drinking days were in high school, before my drug problems really started. Once I started using like real hardcore drugs, drinking just went out the window. But I had a lot of years of drinking in high school, a lot of hard alcohol. In my days, it was a lot of bottle passing. We used to a lot of handle passing, you know. We'd bring 3-4 handles to the table, and then we would have no cups, no glasses, nothing. It would just be straight handles getting passed around the circle. Those were my experience with alcohol back in the day. A lot of Jim Beam, a lot of whiskey, a lot of rum, a lot of nasty shit. and I have always been a super lightweight. I was notorious back in the day for 30 minutes into the party, an hour into the party, to being Casper the ghost, disappeared, gone. The next day the homies would be like, Kelly, where the fuck were you at the whole party? I would always be dead in somebody's bed, or 80% of the time in somebody's bush. I don't know, I was just a super lightweight with alcohol, very impressionable as a kid, never really liked or enjoyed drinking. All of my friends did, so I drank because they were drinking. Always a dummy lightweight, and I always ended up in a bush somewhere, face first in the ground, with some dude pissing in the bush right next to me. Bad experiences on alcohol, 0 out of 10 for me. So never really liked alcohol. Still to this day, I don't really like alcohol, and but I've never really had too many bad encounters with alcohol, like law enforcement. I've been in trouble with my parents with alcohol. Never anything too serious. I would still give it a 0 out of 10 though. So the first real drug that I want to talk about is ecstasy. That's the first like real drug that I had a relationship and did for years at a time, and this was when I was a kid. This was my freshman year, so 2007, 8, 9, or 2008, 9, 10 is when I had a long bout with ecstasy. And back in those days, it was ecstasy press pills. There really wasn't such thing as Molly. There was Molly, but nobody really got it. It was blue naked ladies, green PlayStations, pink Bentleys, green LAXs. The list goes on. I know some of you old heads or older cats know what I'm talking about. Leave some of the names of your favorite ecstasy pills in the comments down below. Those pink Bentleys used to get me going crazy, man. But yeah, my later days of drug use, I never liked uppers. This was in the beginning stages. Like I said, when I was just a kid, I was 14, 15, 16 years old, using ecstasy, some years close to a daily basis, but we were using them on a weekly basis for sure. We were popping them at school. We were using ecstasy at school rallies, school dances. We were making a lot of money with ecstasy, and that was like the first drug that I really got into and kind of like introduced me into the drug game, was ecstasy. I never got in trouble with law enforcement with ecstasy. I've been very close. I've been chased by the cops many times while on ecstasy, selling ecstasy. Luckily, I never got caught up with law enforcement with ecstasy on me, but I've had a lot of friends get caught with ecstasy at school, selling pills at school dances and stuff like that. But yeah, I did ecstasy for probably a 3-year period. It was so bad that me and the homies had pill counts. We would literally compete with each other with how many pills we've taken, dude. And there was some older cat, you know, at my school, that their pill count was double mine, triple mine, and it was just like, at that time, the stupidity in my brain is just like, wow, dude, like this dude pill count is 250. Like, I wonder if I'll ever get there one day. Like, just stupid like that, absolutely retarded. But yeah, me and the homies had a pill count battle, and yeah, had a lot of fun times on ecstasy. Extremely crazy drug, but extremely dangerous at the same time, and something that I would not recommend doing. But had a lot of fun times on ecstasy and had a lot of bad times coming down on ecstasy, and that was again one of the first drugs that I really got into as a kid. Now, sticking with the uppers, we'll move to crystal meth. I've never really been into crystal meth like that. I have used crystal meth multiple times, but it was never a drug that I really got into. When I was around the people that had access to crystal meth, or knew people that did crystal meth, I was using opiates at that time. And if you guys don't know, those are like complete opposites, right? Crystal meth is something that shoots you way up, gets your heart rate going. You'll stay awake for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. You think everybody's after you. You think the feds are after you. You're looking out your window. You're scrubbing parts of your carpet that aren't even dirty. And the opiates are downers. They slow down your heart rate. They make you fall asleep, not out. So when I was around the people who had access, and people that I was around that were using crystal meth, I was a heavy opiate user. So the only times that I really used crystal meth was when I was clean from opiates. Let's say I just went to rehab rehab and got out and was free of opiates, you know, looking for opiates, couldn't find any. The only thing that was there was crystal meth, and I absolutely hated it, dude. I hate crystal meth. Alexandra has some stories about crystal meth. She has used it more than I have, and at the time liked it more than I did, but never really been a fan of crystal meth. To me, it just kept me awake and gave me an extremely weird feeling, a very like weird coming down, like not comfortable in my own skin feeling. You can't fall asleep. I never really got like the paranoia because I never used it to that extent. I would only use it like once on several different occasions. It never got to the point where I was using it for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. But yeah, never really had a bout with crystal meth. It was just something that I dabbled in when nothing else was around. But I do have a lot of homies that used crystal meth. I still have friends to this day that I don't associate with that use crystal meth, and it is a terrible drug, dude. It will literally destroy your life. It will pick your face out to make you look like you have a pepperoni pizza on your face. You'll think everybody's looking for you. You think the feds are after you. You can't sleep. It's an absolutely terrible drug, and if you're struggling with crystal meth, please reach out to me or somebody close to you, and if you can't do that, then call a random person or me. I'm as random as it gets. Crystal meth is definitely nothing to mess with, and yeah, that was my experience with crystal meth. Never used it too much, but when I did, I absolutely hated it. Now, continuing with uppers, we'll go to cocaine. I have used cocaine in my life. There was a period of time where cocaine and alcohol kind of mixed. This was when I was a little bit younger. As I became an adult, in my adult years, I was an opiate user. As when we get to opiates, you guys will find out more about that. But yeah, cocaine kind of got mixed into the alcohol scene when I was a kid, and while I was a junior, senior in high school, it was like you know, 70-30 mix. Alcohol was still the main component of every party that we were at, but then cocaine started coming into the mix, and I did participate, as you know, all the homies did. Again, I never really got too addicted to cocaine. It never got to the point like it has with other drugs where I had to wake up and use it, or use it to go to sleep, or use it to function. It was more of just a party drug for me. Cocaine, as most of you guys might know or not know, helps you continue drinking. So that's kind of how I used it. I never just straight used cocaine by itself. I would always use cocaine to continue drinking. As I previously stated, I was an extreme lightweight with alcohol. So when cocaine got in the mix, it was helpful to me. Right when I felt like I was right on that line, like where I was gonna lose it and pass out or throw up and be done for the night, you know, I would do a little bit of cocaine, and it would keep me going to last the party or go the length to where we needed to go. So never really got too heavy into cocaine. I did use it. I've never been busted for cocaine. I've never had any law enforcement contact for using cocaine, being under the influence, possessing, selling cocaine. I've never sold cocaine, but yeah, definitely used it towards the end of my high school days, and that was my experience with cocaine. Just because it didn't become a problem for me, some of you guys watching this, it may be a problem for you or somebody that you know, and cocaine is extremely popular drug in, you know, like the clubbing scene, in the nightlife scene. Again, it keeps you going, and if you're struggling with cocaine abuse, or you know that somebody is struggling with cocaine abuse that you love, a friend or a family member, definitely seek help. If you can't reach out to anybody, reach out to me, and you know, there's a way to live without it. And just because I didn't have you know, life battling issues with it doesn't mean that somebody else can't or won't. And in my personal experience, it's something that you should stay very far away from. Now, moving on with the uppers. Damn, when are we gonna get to these downers, bro? So we will move to crack cocaine. Now, I have used crack cocaine in my life before. Sadly, I have. There's been some points in my life that were extremely low. Using methamphetamine was was a part of those times, and using crack cocaine was part of those times. Again, crack cocaine was never something that I did on the daily or even did, you know, multiple days in a row. I have dabbled with it more times than I could count on two hands, but it was just when I was at my lowest of lows. You know, there would be certain points where I would get kicked out of my house and be forced to go to a rehab facility. I'd get kicked out of rehab and have nowhere to go. I'd be on the street, you know, sleeping on the street, sleeping at the park. You know, I'd run into other homeless people around my age who had been homeless longer than I have. You know, I've never been homeless for months at a time. I have been homeless for weeks at a time, but those were the points where I used crack cocaine, where I was just in an environment where, you know, there was nothing else to do, and I was with these people. I was at the lowest of the low. I had nowhere to go. I had nobody to call, and those were the points where I used crack cocaine. Extremely terrible experience with it. Again, gave me an extremely weird feeling of like just like body chills and crawls that I absolutely hated. And yeah, crack cocaine is something that you more see with the homeless and people more in poverty. I don't mean that in any disrespectful way at all, but it's an extremely cheap drug. You know, you can get a rock of crack cocaine for $5 that will keep you high for 2 minutes, and that's why you see a lot of homeless addicted to crack cocaine and a lot of people living in poverty addicted to crack cocaine, because it's extremely cheap and the high is very, very short, and it's just a terrible drug and all. And crack cocaine gets a 0 out of 10 for me. Never had any law enforcement contact with crack cocaine, and never had any trouble with crack cocaine. Never used it that much, but I have used it, and if you're thinking about using it or know people that use it, stay as far away from it as you possibly can. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about some psychedelics. First, we'll start with shrooms. I have had a bout with mushrooms in my life before. Never like had a real issue with mushrooms where I felt like I had to have mushrooms. It was just more of a phase that I went through right towards the end of high school and right after high school. This is 2011, 2012. You know, I did do shrooms on a somewhat normal basis with the close group of friends that I had, and shrooms I had some wild experiences on, dude. Shrooms are really cool. It's psychedelic, you know, more on the mind. It does give you somewhat of a body high as well, but it just more psychedelically changes your mind. Colors are very vibrant, things are moving, things are morphing. You know, a lot of people go to the mountains or go to the beach. That's what I would do a lot of times, is go to the beach and eat mushrooms, dude. The sand is just like, it's like a whirlpool of sand. Just some crazy times on mushrooms. But again, the one thing I didn't like about mushrooms was the come down after I ate the mushrooms and after the high was over. You know, you're high on mushrooms for 6-7 hours, and then once you're coming down off of the drug is what I hated the absolute most. It gave me the feeling like crack cocaine or methamphetamine, dude. I just could not stand the feeling like a come down, almost like on Ecstasy. If anybody's ever came down off Ecstasy, it's just like a feeling of like bugs crawling in your skin, like you can't stand the way that you feel. And that was the one thing I hated about mushrooms. I enjoyed it while I was on it. The one good thing that I could say about mushrooms is just like the laughter, dude. You just laugh so much on mushrooms. Again, please do not take this as glorification of the drug. I am just explaining my personal experience. I'm telling you to not do these drugs at the end of every speech. This is just my personal experience. The laughs that I got from mushrooms were absolutely insane, dude. I remember one time we were trying to get from Huntington Beach to Newport Beach with the homies. You know, if some of the homies are watching this, shout out to you guys. Dude, it took us like 2 hours to get from Huntington Beach to Newport Beach, which usually would take a normal person about 8 minutes, dude. It took us an hour and a half because everybody in the car could not stop laughing. And we were trying to ask each other what we were laughing about, but nobody could stop laughing so hard to explain why we were laughing, but nobody knew why. It was just a crazy experience. That was just one experience on mushroom. The psychedelic part of it, and you know how it made my mind feel and how it made things change, was cool at the time. You know, I was young, 17, 18, 19 years old, and you know, I had some good times on mushrooms. We used to put them inside hamburgers and eat the hamburgers. We'd eat mushrooms like actual like psychedelic mushrooms with steak and do stuff like that just with the homies, you know, when we were kids being dumb. And again, I do know people that had gotten severely addicted to mushrooms, and yeah, if you're in that position or know somebody that is, please reach out. Drugs are not a game, you know. Sometimes you guys hear these stories like, oh, we had such a blast doing this and this. You know, you just have to know your own place. That's the only thing that I can say, you know. You have to know which side of the line you're on. There's some people that can do drugs responsibly and wake up and go to work the next day, wake up and go to school the next day, and there's some people that can't. So you just have to know which side of the line you're on. Definitely had some fun times on mushrooms, but the one thing that I hated about it was the come down off the mushrooms. Absolutely disgusted me, made me feel like a piece of human being, and that was one of the main reasons why I stopped using mushrooms, was the come down. So I don't know if anybody on here is drug free. If you are, please continue to stay that way, but every drug that I'm talking about or will talk about has a high, and every drug has a come down. So there's no drug that you take that you just take it and it has its effects and then it's over. There's always a high and there's always a low, and for shrooms, the low just got to the point where it made me feel so disgusting, and that was one of the reasons why I stopped using them. But don't get it twisted, had a lot of good times on mushrooms, and yeah, mushrooms was a fun drug for sure. Continuing with the psychedelics, we will go to acid. Now if I had to rate the two, again, please don't take this as glorification, I would pick acid over mushrooms every single day. Acid, I never got the come down like I did on mushrooms. I never got that nasty feeling when the high was over. Acid, you know, could be a great experience for some people. There's places you can go and use psychedelic drugs such as acid and other things, you know, as spiritual awakenings. Some places you can go to use these drugs to cleanse yourself of other drug addictions that you have, you know, so please do not take this as glorification, but acid, I had some extremely fun times, dude. Acid awakes the mind a little bit more than mushrooms. Mushrooms, things change, colors are vibrant, things are moving, but it doesn't really touch like the inner brain like acid does. If any of you guys have done acid, then you guys could probably relate. Dude, it's like almost like an awakening in your brain, whatever you want to call it, spiritual awakening, like self-awakening, whatever. The times that I've done acid and, you know, like woke up the next day, like I just, you know, had a totally different outlook on the things that were going on in my life. But again, these are also drugs that are extremely dangerous if you're not in the right mindset to take, right? So that's why people always say, you know, like you need to have good vibes, be around good people, do good things when you're taking acid. If you're tripping on taking acid, like what is this gonna do to me? How am I gonna feel? If there's things in your subconscious that you're worried about, things with family, things at home, and you take acid, you can have an extremely bad experience to the point where you need to go to the hospital, or to the point where you feel like you're gonna die and you're gonna call 911 on yourself. Just because there's good things or good experiences that I've had on these drugs doesn't mean that there's not bad things that can happen as well. So please, again, do not mistake it for glorification. These are just my personal experiences. You know, acid has, again, awoken my mind many times. I have not done acid or shrooms or any of the drugs that I've talked about in over 5 years. At the time of doing these drugs, dude, acid was one that I really enjoyed. You know, I've done acid in the mountains, like, you know, straight mountain. I've done acid like in the hills, you know, like deserty hills. I've done acid at the beach, done acid many different places, and it's all about your mind state, the people you're with, the kind of vibe that you're going with. It could be a very good experience and it could be a very bad experience, dude. But again, you know, that's a drug that makes things much brighter than they actually are. It makes things move. It makes things, you know, that you're looking at seem to be a certain way that it's actually not. And yeah, around the right people, it could be a great experience. Around the wrong people, it could be a very bad experience. So again, I know people who have had bouts with acid where it got to the point where they were micro-tabbing acid, which means taking small amounts of acid every single day, basically addicted to acid. So please do not take this for glorification. If you're struggling with acid or know somebody that's struggling with with acid. Just because you hear good times or good things that people have to say about the drug, there's always the opposite end, and it can be dangerous. So please know what side of the line that you stay on. If you and your friends are thinking about doing acid, please just make sure that you're doing it in the right mind state with the right people. And if I could say anything, I would say not to do it. That's just my opinion. And yeah, had some very good times with acid. Never had really any trouble with acid, any law enforcement contact, anything like that. A lot of good times on acid for sure. This is kind of weird, dude. Like the sun was in my face, it was bright, you know, like I was talking about like drugs that I had experienced with and had bouts with, and like, you know, never really took too far. And then the sun went down and it got a little darker, and then here we are to talk about opioids, which have completely destroyed my life at a certain point. They haven't destroyed my life anymore. I have not taken any opioids in almost 5 years, but kind of weird how it did that. It's getting darker, and now we're talking about you know, some of the darkest times in my life, dude. Straight up, I would advise anybody watching this video to never ever ever take an opioid ever. Vicodin, Tylenol with codeine, Norco, Oxycontin, Percocet, heroin, fentanyl. If I could advise you one thing, I'm looking dead in the eyes, I would tell you, do not take any opioid, whatever it is. Now, I'm not gonna get too deep into, you know, like certain experiences that I've had with opioids because there's way too many. I think I've been arrested 13 times in my entire life, and I could confidently say that every single one of those times was opioid related. So I am not gonna get into like a one particular story because there's too many, but I'm glad to do this video because if it gets some good feedback and you guys like it and would like to hear some other stories, that's like kind of where we can open it up. Maybe talk about the times I've been arrested. I've been to rehab, again, more times that I could count on 2 hands, all of them for opioid usage. If you guys want to hear about some of my rehab experiences, I've left rehab, I've been kicked out of rehab, I've finished rehab. All the times that were the darkest in my life were because of opioids. But the first opioid I ever took, I still remember to this day, was a Vicodin. Somebody gave it to me at school. There was a dude that I used to get chewing tobacco from at school. I was in 10th grade, maybe 10th grade, and I asked him for some chewing tobacco before class, and he told me he didn't have any chewing tobacco, but that he had this pill. And he's like, I don't have any chew, but I have this pill. It's called a Vicodin if you want to take it. And I still remember that day crystal clear, like it was yesterday, the first day I ever took an opioid. And after that day, my life was never the same, dude. I remember it was a Vicodin. I started taking Vicodin on a pretty normal basis, I would probably say in the 10th grade. Then I, you know, moved up to Norco, and then I moved up to Oxycontin, and then I moved to heroin, did fentanyl, and all of that kind of stuff. But that's where it always starts, is with the pills, with the Vicodin, with the Tylenol with codeine, right? The Vicodin, it has acetaminophen in it. The Norco, it has acetaminophen in it, which is Tylenol, right? You want to block out the Tylenol, you want to get just the pure stuff. So people move to Oxycontin. Oxycontin is extremely expensive. After doing Oxycontin and spending so much money on it for so long, you want to get the same high and not spend but 1/3 of the money. And that's how I would say 90% of the people end up using heroin. It starts from using opioid pills. Vicodin, Norco, Oxycontin turns into heroin use, and that's exactly how it ended up for me. So I went from taking 300 to 400 milligrams of Oxycontin per day, which costed me about $300 a day, you know, which led me to crime, which led me to jail, which led me to all bad circumstances. That led me to start using heroin, and that's when I started smoking black tar heroin, which was in 2012, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact date, but yeah, the longest stretch of my drug abuse was definitely with opioids, and that's when all other drugs and alcohol, weed got put on the back burner. When I was doing opioids, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do ecstasy, I didn't do meth, I didn't do anything except opioids. That was it. That was the only thing that I cared about. That was the only thing that I robbed for. That was the only thing that I stole for. That was the only thing that I manipulated for and lied for. The most was opiates. Again, it led me to jail 13 times. It led me to county prison. It led me to rehab more than 10 times. If anybody out there there is struggling with opioid abuse, please holler at me or somebody, because you can live a life opiate free. Trust me, you're looking at it right here. I went from using opioids every single day, smoking heroin, shooting heroin, using fentanyl, to being completely opiate free for almost 5 years. So I don't really have any good times to share with you, kind of, you know, with the acid and the shrooms. You know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I had a couple good times here, a couple good times there, drinking alcohol, doing cocaine. You know, when I was a kid in high school, had some good times, some bad times too. But with the opioids, I would say that there was no good times, dude. It just led to absolute hell, and it destroyed everything in my life, dude. I had best friends that I grew up with on my street. I'm pretty sure some of you guys watching that have friends like that to this day. Just if you guys see some kids pass in the back, that was Carson with his neighborhood homies that he's growing up with right now. I had friends just like that from my neighborhood when I was a kid, that because of my opioid use, I burned bridges with 2 of my best friends that I've ever had, and today I have no contact with them. I hit them, I tell them happy birthday, they hit me up happy birthday, and that's it, dude. You know, I burnt those bridges, dude. I burned bridges with my family, burnt my mom, burnt my dad completely, robbed my mom, my sisters, my brothers, my best friends, people I didn't care about, people I cared about. I would say that opioids have done absolutely nothing but bad things in my life. And you know, I don't know, I kind of just wanted to share my experience with each drug that I've had, and we're kind of ending with the opiates here, and there's just no good times on it. You know, even the times that I would say were good, the nights that I have a homie who passed away from a heroin overdose. R.I.P. Adam Abadawi. That was my boy from back in the day, my best friend for a couple years straight, dude. I used a lot of opiates with him, a lot of Oxycontin, a lot of heroin with him, and he died from a heroin overdose. And you know, that was my boy, that was my best friend. And I've lost other people that I've been close to, people I met in rehab, people I met in jail that I came out and created friendships with, that are no longer here today because of heroin, because of fentanyl. So, you know, I had a lot of good times with Adam. My boy passed away, it's gotta be, I don't know, 4 years ago now, 3 years ago now, dude. Some of the best days that we ever had was riding around doing dirt and picking up pills and getting high and bumping Waka Flocka and you know, and some extremely good times, and times that I will never forget in my entire life. But you know, that the drug that we had so much fun on, and drug that you know, we were severely addicted to and had good times on and bonded over with, ended up taking his life, and he's no longer here. So R.I.P. Adam Abadawi. And yeah, if you or anybody you know is struggling with an opiate addiction, please reach out to somebody. If nobody, then reach out to me. If you can take away anything from this video, it would be just don't even take it, not even once. That would be my advice, not even once. So there are some drugs that I haven't used. PCP is one drug that I haven't used. I tried to make a list here. I look like a sicko. I just have a notepad with a bunch of drugs written down. I've never used PCP, shrooms, whatever you want to call it. Never used that drug, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I didn't go over benzos too much. Xanax, I have used Xanax, but you know, that was like in my pill phase when I was using a lot of opiates. And the only time I ever really used Xanax is when I didn't have enough opiate. You know, when you're using opiates, there's a certain amount that you need in order to not be sick or feel withdrawal from opiate. And the only time that I use Xanax is when I didn't have enough opiates. It would kind of balance it out and just level me out and get me to the next day. But I never really got into Xanax too much. The times that I did have with Xanax or benzos, I didn't really enjoy, because I just wouldn't remember anything. I would take Xanax, and then for one, the time would fly. Like, it would just, like, I would remember taking Xanax, like, you know, me and the homies would roll around. This was back in the day, right after high school, 2012, and you know, it'd be 5 p.m. and we'd pop Xanax and then like go to the park and smoke a blunt, and then I'd look at the clock and it'd be like in 10:30 p.m. and I'm like, what? Like, we just popped these things like 30 minutes ago, dude? How did 5 hours already pass? For some reason, whenever I took Xanax, it did that to me. I don't know, the time just flew. And then when I woke up the next day, I could never remember what I did. So I never really liked Xanax too much. Again, that was in my pill phase when I was more concerned with opiates, Vicodin, Norco, Oxycontin, and stuff like that. But off the top of my head, PCP is really the only drug that I could think of that I haven't done or haven't had a bout with. If there's any drugs that I missed, leave them in the comments below, and then I can leave a comment under that letting you know if I have had an experience with it or not. You know, there's other shit like salvia. I've smoked salvia. That shit is weird as hell, dude. Oh my god, that shit will put you in like a whirlwind. That shit is super weird, salvia. But like I've smoked that, and I know there's like some other crazier drugs. DMT, I've never done DMT. Duva's done DMT though, so maybe Duva will leave a comment, and or maybe I'll get it on the next episode when we do something else related to drug, or you know, like the next sit down video, and she can tell you her experience with DMT. But I have never done that. DMT, PCP, I don't know, any other drugs, leave them in the comments down below. But as far as like the main categories of drugs, I can pretty much say I've done them all. And you know, some were at an adolescent age where, you know, it didn't lead to anything too serious, but you know, others have completely and utterly destroyed my life, and still to this day, you know, I am feeling the effects of using those drugs even 5 years later down the line. So if anybody you know or you yourself is struggling with drug abuse at all, reach out to somebody, call somebody, and if not anybody, reach out to me, and I can do what I can to try to get you on the right path, or try to say something helpful, dude. So again, I've not used any drugs since February 8th, 2015. I smoke my cigarettes. I've smoked a little bit of weed here and there with the homies, cracked a brew here and there. But as far as drug usage, that's why I still celebrate my birthday. The drugs, the things that led me to manipulation, lying, robbing, stealing, prison, jail, rehab, I've been free of those things for coming up on 5 years. So much love to all you guys, man. Those are all the drugs that I have done in my experience with them. Leave a comment down below if you made it to the end of the video. I feel weird saying like, let me know what drugs you've done down below. That's kind of weird. I don't want to say that. If anything, please understand that I'm not glorifying any drug use whatsoever. I would say no to drugs at all costs if I were you. And if you're coming up, I know there's probably some kids that are watching this video. Peer pressure is a real thing, and please understand that you can make your own choices, and you can decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do. If you know, you're gonna take Sleepy's advice, I would say no. I appreciate you guys watching. Maybe this will lead to another video. I don't know. Leave some comments down below. Yeah, don't leave any comments about drugs you've done. Leave comments down below. Let me know what other kind of video I should do, you know, kind of pertaining to drugs. Maybe my experiences with rehab, or you know, the times I've been arrested, or you know, the times I've, you know, actually spent months at a time in jail, incarcerated. Let me know what kind of stories you guys would like to hear, or just kind of like what video you guys would like to see next, kind of going along this peek back into my life, kind of some life experiences that I've been through. Leave a comment down below of what video you guys would like to see next. If you guys made it to the end, much love. You guys know what it is. You guys can check me out on the gram at Leroy Destroy. You guys know I always preach it. Say no to drugs. Please do not take this as glorification. This was just my experience with the drugs that I've used, and how they affected me. And if you guys can take one thing away, do not use opiates in any way, shape, or form. Much love. We'll catch you guys on the flip side on the next video. I'm out of here. My neighbors, they probably hate me, and now all my neighbors know that I have smoked crack cocaine. So I'm gonna end the video here. Reese's Pieces. I'm out. Later, skater. Doses.